Today on Southern Utah Community Film Studio, we're going to talk about the Panasonic GH4. Welcome to Southern Utah Community Film Studio. I am your host, Mike Crockett. A while back, we showed you some test footage that we took with the Panasonic GH4. Today, let's talk more about the GH4, some of the things I like, some of the things I don't like, you know, review style. So first off, understand that I am not affiliated with Panasonic, and everything that I say about this camera is strictly just my own opinion. Now, with that aside, there really is a lot to like about this camera. For just a brief overview of some of its features, it has a 16.05 megapixel digital live MOS sensor. One of the most notable features about this camera when it was first announced is that it can not only shoot in UHD 4K, but it can also shoot in DCI 4K, which at a resolution of 4096 by 2160 is a slightly higher resolution than UHD. DCI stands for Digital Cinema Initiatives, and to kind of oversimplify what that means, it means that this resolution is a standard for digital cinema. In normal modes, it can shoot in full HD at up to 60 progressive frames per second. Now in variable frame rates, that can be bumped up to 96 progressive frames per second if you're looking to get some really good slow motion action. You get a fully articulating 3-inch 1036K OLED touchscreen monitor on the back of the camera. If you'd rather use a viewfinder, you have a 2359K OLED live viewfinder. If you like to use autofocus, you have a high-speed 49-point autofocus. And the camera is encased in a magnesium alloy weather-sealed body. As far as the things that I like about this camera, first, there's the 4K. I typically output to 1080p, but I love having that extra 4K resolution so that I can digitally zoom in and post without losing image quality. As far as battery life goes, I recently shot a commercial for a local business. It was about a 5-hour shoot, and the camera was on the entire time, even while we were setting up the shots. I never turned it off. I never had to change the battery, and it probably could have gone for another hour or two after that. The battery life with this camera is just simply phenomenal. The camera uses SD cards, which I have in abundance, as all of my other cameras either use SD cards exclusively or at least have the ability to use SD cards. You do have to be careful, however, that when you buy an SD card for this camera, it has to be one that's fast enough to handle the high bit rate. When shooting at 1080 resolutions, you can shoot at bit rates up to 200 megabits per second, which requires a really fast SD card, and a large one at that if you plan on filming more than just a few minutes. Most of my SD cards are the SanDisk Extreme Pros, which have a max write speed of 90 megabytes per second, which if you do the math comes out to about 720 megabits per second. Speaking of the bit rate, up to 200 megabits per second when shooting at 1080 resolutions. That'll fill up an SD card pretty quickly, but it gives you a lot of data to work with in post, especially for color correction. And speaking of data and color correction, the camera has a Cine-like D shooting mode, which shoots in a somewhat flat profile, giving you a wide dynamic range, which helps in color correction. However, the camera that you buy retail is not fully unlocked. You can purchase from Panasonic a code to unlock a new shooting mode in the firmware called V-Log-L, which basically means that the camera is shooting without adding its own contrast and color saturation internally. It's almost, but not quite, like shooting in RAW, and lets you go even farther with color correction. It has a micro 4/3 lens mount. And what I like about that is that I can get an adapter to mount just about any lens out there, regardless of the lens's mounting type. It also has an HDMI output that outputs 422, 8-bit, or 10-bit. So on to things that I don't like about this camera. This really isn't a long list for me. I mean, no camera's perfect, and the GH4 definitely is no exception to that, but there really are only a few little issues that I find wrong with this camera. To start, a moment ago I talked about how it can output 422 8-bit or 10-bit via its HDMI port, but it does not record this internally. Why, Panasonic? Why? Also, it would be nice if it could record RAW internally. I mean, the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera is a less expensive camera body, and it can record RAW. But this isn't a comparison video, so I won't go any further into that. And there is the V-Log-L unlock in the firmware. Really? I mean, if the camera is already capable of it, why should I have to pay an extra $100 on top of my purchase of the camera body itself just to use it? Oh, that's right, so the Panasonic can get even more money. But, you know, with that said, it really isn't a whole lot of money that you have to pay for to get what you get in this camera and its capabilities. Overall, I am really happy with the camera. I've used it to film stage performances, commercials for business clients, and it'll be our main camera in our upcoming short film, Time Cave. I hope you found this review useful. Please remember to subscribe because we try to post stuff to our channel every week. Also, like us on Facebook, and we'll see you again right here on SUCFS.